is a top issue for voters, and it could be tipping the scales in one of the most watched Senate races in the country. Dr. Oz picking up steam in his Senate race against Democrat John Fetterman in Pennsylvania. A new Fox News poll has the Fetterman-Oz race narrowing, with Dr. Oz picking up 5 points since July. And as Jen Psaki said, crime is a huge liability for the Democratic Party. It's so bad that John Fetterman has removed mentions of Black Lives Matter and his Second Chances program from his campaign website in the last month. That's according to a review of archived web pages. And violence has been exploding in the state's largest city of Philadelphia. More than 1,700 people have been shot, and homicides have taken the lives of 400 people so far this year. Radical DA Larry Krasner recently called out on this, but he's standing firm on his policies.
It is working. The reality is that
there's 1,000 people killed in 20 months.
It is working. The reality is, when you look at all these different jurisdictions, we have had a devastating blow from the pandemic, and there is absolutely no correlation between being progressive or traditional and the rate of crime. These states in the United States that have a rate of homicide that is 40% higher are MAGA states. They are Trump states.
That's the safe harbor, Judge. When you're under fire, just call people, just go to Trump and see if you can get cover that way.
First of all, the governor doesn't control the police in individual cities in an individual state. So get off the MAGA states. That's number one. Number two, this DA is an idiot. He says there is no correlation between crime and an aggressive and a traditional versus a progressive DA. I'm going to tell you what the correlation is. The progressive DA wants to let the criminal out. The traditional DA wants to lock him up and throw away the key and make sure that he pays for the crime that he commits. All right, that's real simple. So Krasner's out of his mind. Just like Mike Jarrett said, 1,000 people killed and shot in the last 20 months, and this guy says we're improving. It's like Lori Lightfoot saying we're making progress. No, you're not. You're making excuses, and I'm tired of the pandemic being an excuse or a justification for crime. If it is, pass a law. Make it a justification for a crime. And finally, my last point is this, that Fetterman, who wants to release second-degree murderers, people convicted of second-degree murder, he is a big Black Lives Matter guy, which kind of surprises me because he took a gun and chased an African-American kid and then held him until police came and decided he was innocent, but that's a whole other issue. He takes Black Lives Matter off of his website, and he says, and his press person says, no, we didn't. Well, they did. They took it off the issues page. I have the issues page here. There's no Black Lives Matter. And instead, they included it down in the middle of another thing about gun violence, and they just say Black Lives Matter and these communities matter.
Harold, one of the things that Dr. Oz has done is really focused on crime. And you have Fetterman, who has health issues, and that could also be playing a role here. But he's smart to go into Philly because that's where a lot of the problems are, because there are people in Philly who are frustrated with Krasner. And if for some reason Dr. Oz can either get people to vote for him, great. But if he can hold down the number of people voting for Fetterman in the city of Philadelphia, which is so hugely populated, he might be able to win this race.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the political strategy without question. I will say this, in fairness to the candidate, Mr. Fetterman, I mean, he's a gun owner. He's for the Second Amendment. He's for maximum penalties for violent offenders, which means he's not for these soft bail rules that we see in some cities, including our home city here in New York. He's been supported by police officers across the state, including where he was the mayor. So just think, if we're going to lay out the facts, I think it's important to highlight where he's been on many of these issues. There's no surprise this race was going to tighten. This is the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is a seat that was represented by a Republican named Pat Toomey. And Fetterman has found early on in the campaign this messaging around Oz not being from Pennsylvania, and it seemed to resonate with voters. It's now coalescing around 3 or 4 issues here, and we will see how it measures out. I think if you were to ask voters in Pennsylvania whom they believe is going to be nicer and kinder, who's going to be more supportive of Black Americans, they would probably still say Fetterman. I do think it's hard to reconcile him being soft on crime if he did believe that this young black male should have been apprehended until some questions were asked. I think he'll have to answer those questions. But I do think it's hard to characterize or portray him or paint him somehow or another as somebody soft on crime. First of all, I do know this, and as I end, he's a big fella. I know I wouldn't want to mess with him. Indeed, if someone was perpetrating a crime on me, I'd rather have John Fetterman there than Dr. Oz.
What about?
But Jesse, go ahead.
What about the fact he wants to release second-degree murderers? Don't say he's tough on violent crime. He's not.
That's not true.
Oh, it's not?
It's not true.
Oh, so all the articles and reports are wrong.
I've not read one article saying he wants to release anyone who's committed a second-degree murder. What he does is people who've served their time in jail, and I agree with this.
He doesn't want them to serve for life.
Right. He believes that people, when they get out of jail, they ought to have a second chance.
Jesse and Greg both in here, and they have Pennsylvania ties, both of them. The point that Oz has made about crime has led John Fetterman to be vulnerable enough that he did change his website. And so there is an impact there on crime.
Right. I mean, grown men don't change their position on crime in a year, unless you're a politician. And Pennsylvania doesn't have a crime problem. Philly does. And it's because of idiots like Krasner, well said. And I blame the Philly voters. They put this guy there. They keep reelecting him. But I also blame the Democrat machine because they get idiots like this guy nominated who ends up getting black people killed and getting Democrats killed at the polls. So you got to nominate moderate Democrats in these districts, or else it's going to be a bloodbath, literally and figuratively. So we've had some really bad Senate candidates. We had the guy cruising for chicks in malls down in Alabama, the witch, remember her? And now Beto O'Rourke, wasn't he a candidate? But John Fetterman has to be the worst Senate candidate that I've ever come across. Is he on the list for a heart transplant, Dana? He said something the other day. He said, the Eagles are so much better than the Eagles. I might even agree with that, but that is very, very confusing. He lives with his parents. He doesn't pay taxes. He has tattoos. He's so weak, he would be eaten alive by Chinese spies if you ever went to Washington, D.C. You could dangle raw meat in front of Fetterman and just go like this to get him in a hotel room and just have your way with him. The guy's in no shape to be a U.S. senator. He chases blacks around with shotguns. He wants to ban natural gas and oil and the internal combustion engine. This guy is nuts. He wears gym clothes to work, doesn't own a suit. Dresses nicer than, I mean, probably worse than Bernie Sanders. There's no way he could cut it in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, worse than Bernie Sanders, you think?
Well, you know,
Where do you go with that?
I don't know. I have to. I think to what Harold was saying, I think he's changed since you painted him more moderate than the judge. I think he's probably maybe closer to the judge. He feels like a cookie cutter progressive. He's so far been immune from the policies that he supports that destroys the state. The only reason why he was supporting BLM, it's not a contradiction. It was a protection racket. It was because he chased the black guy with the gun.
Exactly.
So he chased the black guy with a gun. He did precisely the worst thing you could do to an unarmed, innocent black man. And what he figured, a jogger, and what he figured was, I'll just support BLM and that'll get me coverage. That's starting to fall apart. He's a couch surfing, unskilled, hood-wearing dude who lives with his parents. You know, he's not qualified for this job. However, he could win, and if he wins, this will go down as one of the most embarrassing Republican blunders in history. I wish I had run. I lived in Pennsylvania for 10 years. Dr. Oz is literally being given the Senate seat, and he can't do anything with it. I think that's bad. That upsets me.
He better win this thing.
Yeah.
It's narrowing, so we'll continue to watch it.